in Oregon. I mean, this is the most hyped game. And Mark, you being a historian of the game, you remember that moment in time, right? That was also two top 10 teams, and both of those teams ended up having spectacular seasons. So
in Dallas, correct?
Yes, in Dallas. That was all the way back in 2011. And Mark, LSU fans feel the same way about this rematch spot.
I could probably come up with the score if I thought a little bit about it, but we won't waste anybody's time because we got to break this one down. Carter, since you're our guest, we'll give you first dibs on this one. So Mason Smith, obviously an enormous loss. That came out about a week ago. And now we learn about John Emery, which you're telling me not necessarily huge in the game plan. Of course, this is a guy that if you follow the SEC in college football, you've known the name for quite some time. He is a guy that has been around for quite some time.
Yeah, so this is the third consecutive year, Mark, that John Emery is missing the season opener for whatever reason this time around. I don't believe it's injury related. Brian Kelly just said he's unavailable. So LSU had 8 scholarship running backs anyway, and 2 others have injury designation. So they still feel pretty good about their running back room, right? And then obviously Mason Smith being out is obviously a huge story, but at the same time, LSU's defensive tackles without Mason Smith last year stepped up without him. And look, to Kareem Super Chat here, the Florida State offensive line versus the LSU defensive line. It's such a huge matchup, right? With Mekhi Wingo's returning All-American, got the number 18 uniform. And honestly, the guy, to me, Mark, I do my own grades and all that stuff, that had the highest grade for me last year in that game, outside of Travis, of course, and outside of Verse, was Fabian Lovett. And I went back and I rewatched that game, and I watched him just over and over and over again. And he is a very underrated player, and LSU's going to have to deal with him and Florida State's great defensive line as well. So I know, especially James, being a former fullback himself, this game is going to be physical. It's going to come down to the trenches for me.
So I love these shows because I get to learn from you three. So I'll stay out of the way and let you guys talk ball, and I'll just soak it in. So you guys have at it.
Yeah, I mean, basically, I agree with everything that Carter said. I think a lot of what people try to pick on Florida State about the 3 games that they had where they kind of fell. I would argue that not having Fabian Lovett was a really, really big piece of that, and also leaving that game. That game also left Jared Verse banged up. So just to start off your season with such a physical game, and I believe Mason Smith towards ACL early in it, just a lot of hitting. A hell of a way to introduce a true freshman into the world of college football. Even though the world kind of had an idea that Jared Verse was going to be good, and all the reports came out, but nobody really knew coming from FCS Albany. But still, going up against a guy like that, that's a hell of a first day to be able to come out. And just in general, Jaden Daniels' progression on that last 5 minutes of the game was extremely electric. I can't take anything from that. I mean, we can make excuses, we can make arguments, but at the end of the day, he produced, and he was able to take up large chunks of yardage and move the ball, and made that game into something where you just had to be in your seat. And I think that's sets up for a great matchup. If you're a pugilist like me and you like boxing, you see somebody and you feel like the boxer has it set up, and you feel like they should be able to win. Even if you like UFC, when you think about Usman, and when he lost the match, I can't think of the guy's name, but he literally had it won until the last minute, let his guard down and got a kick to the head, and the next thing you know, he's and he gets knocked out. That actually that's probably the best way to describe the FSU LSU game, except for Florida State was able to come up with something to where at the end, and I would even call it winning on the cards, as opposed to just knocking out your opponent. So when you see what they come up to, you see the injuries. Both teams have lost some things, a critical piece. I think Darrell Jackson was going to be extremely important. I think this season, adding depth. Hopefully, NCAA gives some good news. It seems like they're overturning, or at least re-looking at some people's suspensions. But when you look at it, both teams have some things that they actually are evenly matched up when you take away your bias.
See, James, somebody my age, and this even predates me, so I didn't even get to see this the first go around. Somebody my age would go with Ali and the rope-a-dope for 14 rounds, where he covered up for 14 rounds and then came out with a flurry against George Foreman in the 15th. All right, George, what do you think about this matchup?
Yeah, man, I'm like everything they said is right on the money. You know, both these teams kind of snuck up on everybody last year. This was two unranked teams meeting first game of the year, and it ends up being one of the better games all year. Comes down to a blocked extra point. Luckily, we're on the right end of that. Florida State gets the win. Like Carter said, I'm looking at the trenches. It's going to be huge. Who can win that matchup? Offensive line versus defensive line, both ways. Adding Braden Fisk for Florida State, I think, is kind of going to be the X factor for that defensive line. Can he get that pressure up the middle alongside Fabian Lovett, a totally healthy Fabian Lovett with no game one to get dinged up? You know, they've been really, I'd say, selective with how they've used Fabian Lovett in camp. They know what he is. It's not like he's going to make some giant strides. He stayed healthy. Who's going to win that big battle in the trenches? You've got the LSU line that's young, super, super talented. You know, bookend tackles that were ended up, I believe, freshman All-Americans by the end of the year last year. We talked about this. One of the biggest matchups is going to be the defensive backs on y'all's end versus our wide receivers. I'd like to hear, I guess, if we go somewhere else, get into the DBs, Carter.
Yeah, absolutely. I think obviously what makes this game very spicy for LSU's defensive backfield is that they know these guys, right? A lot of them obviously are from Louisiana and they're familiar with Keon Coleman. You know, the opposing wide receivers were all in the same recruiting class. Brian Thomas Jr., Malik Neighbors, and Keon Coleman and Destin Hill. So you're talking about the 4 of the 5 top receivers in this game, in this matchup. It's absolutely crazy that you get this type of matchup between guys that grew up with each other. So yeah, and then obviously I know Mason Smith's not playing. Ja'Kai Douglas, they were childhood friends. They're both out. So yeah, I totally agree. It's gonna be a tough matchup for LSU's defense. So we'll see what happens. But Mark, I think somebody like just entered my house.
It sounds like it.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go check that out. I hope no one's coming. It might be one of James's guys coming after me. After all,
Definitely,
that.
man. You know, we got to send them goons after me and Blake got into it on the spaces. I want to make sure people know I mean business.
Right. I'll be back in a second, Mark. Let me see what's going on.
No worries. No worries. James, talking about business, you might as well run some business bias concerning what's going on outside the stadium before, during the game coming up, and what people can get a hold of.
Hopefully my big head is out of the way. But if you 1331 Church Street, we're having a big block party for the FSU LSU game. It's not block party, excuse me. This is the tailgate from 12:15 until 11 p.m. Basically before kickoff to after kickoff, and we'll party off of that. I will, if you go to my at Big Game James _36, there is a QR code. There's the link also to the ticket tailor. It's $60, all you can eat, all you can drink. Their proceeds go to MFTK Foundation. So if you follow me and you've seen the book bag drives and the stuff that I do, these tailgates front a very good majority of all the funds that go towards that. We're having a Saturday night block party. The block party is free. You come there. There's going to be a live band, That's Pressure, playing top 40 hits. It's basically 180 from what Florida State, what will be a block party on the other side of Church Street. Nothing, not trying to compete. I just don't really like country music, so I decided I wanted to hire a band, and they're going to come hang out with us. And they're going to play some good top 40 covers. We'll also have a DJ. There'll be food vendors. And what we have is we have beverages that will be sold. We have beverage bands that you can go to the same site to buy your tickets from for the tailgate, $30. And then that gets you unlimited cups, unlimited ice, unlimited sodas. And then there will be a table that would have adult beverages that are there. So it's, yeah. Somebody said, I don't care if you're LSU, FSU, BYU, as long as you bring good vibes and fun, you're more than welcome to be able to come and hang out with us, man. Like, this is not about One thing I'll say this, and me and Carter were talking about this before. My tailgate in New Orleans, it was so dope. There was some LSU frat boys that were right next to us, and they came on over there, and we partied, and we had a great time. None of that stuff. This ain't Florida, and this ain't Miami. Like we really don't like. We may not play y'all again, especially with the new way things are moving. Unless we go to the SEC, we may not ever play you guys again. There's no beef. This is not a rivalry. We're gonna get out there. We're gonna compete from about 7:30 p to about 11 to 11:30 p, and then after that, maybe a little bit of bad blood for about an hour or two after that. But then we got to go finish our seasons. If you look at what LSU did last year, they took an L like a tough one. Ball don't lie. We shouldn't have fumbled it, and then my man really got tackled on the 3 as opposed to the 1, and he was out of bounds. But whatever, we're not going for all of that. But LSU had a phenomenal season. They beat Alabama. They had a couple L's that they took on the chin after that, but the reality is they finished up to be able to go and have a very good season considering all things that happened. Man, I would love for nothing more. Bring some melatonin and some jambalaya and some good red beans and rice and the dirty rice with the gravy in it. Not that Popeye stuff. I want the real dirty rice. Y'all bring that on. And we can party it up. So. Again, the proceeds are going to help inner city youth and families. That's where the money for these tailgates go toward. It's a good little setup, man. And we also have parking available that's in a safe area. If you don't know Orlando, right where the stadium is, this road called OBT, Orange Blossom Trail, and you don't have to know. Actually, just like New Orleans. I didn't find that out until I played. New Orleans, the Superdome isn't necessarily in the greatest area in America. Like it's not bad, but it wasn't far from some of the projects that Juvenile and Master P and all them rapped about. Orange Blossom Trail, very few stadiums in America are in the nicest neighborhoods. Yeah. But Orange Blossom Trail, if you go to the left, that's like if you go to the right, like Lion King. That's where lions roam, the kingdom. We do all of that stuff. That's going to the stadium. So that's where my tailgate is, and we have parking that's near the stadium, relatively safe. You don't have to worry about anything. Now, on the other side of Orange Blossom Trail, that's the Shadowlands. No lion is to go there. Like that's where the hyenas and Scar and all them hang out. I can't promise you that nothing won't happen to your car. But those tickets and stuff, people are still selling parking for $200 and up in the hood. We're selling parking for $150. I went and I negotiated a lot of these rates to make sure that people weren't hitting. I mean, there's parking that's $500 near the stadium, and I just don't want people to get hit over the head. I think I would have to be like Carter here.
Yeah, man, you got to come in with those brass knuckles, baby. I normally carry nunchucks with me to every game I go to now, but yeah, man, that tailgate sounds epic. It really, really, really does. I wish I was going. So yeah, man.